Well, congratulations, Antonio. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, it was great. It was good. It's been a good 6 years since we're here. So,
Is your
so
wife from Portugal as well?
yeah, she is, and my
Mhm.
girls too.
Mhm.
Yep.
Great.
So now we are in the process to get the new passports and all that.
Hmm.
That is a big, big thing right now because it's gonna take months to
Yeah.
get the passports. So
Not as easy as it used to be.
no, that. So I will be for now. I can still travel with the Portuguese passport. So
Uh-huh.
it'll be a big deal.
Mhm.
So
Well, I see some people coming in. Bill from Indiana, and we'll probably have people from all over the world. We usually get
mhm,
people from
that is cool.
Ireland, Argentina,
Yeah, that
Sweden.
is cool.
Yeah, I haven't. I
So
don't know if I've seen any tires from Portugal in here, Antonio. We'll have to get
probably
some.
not.
We'll have
Usually
to get some
we
Portugal.
get blended with the Spanish. Sometimes
I
because we want to, other times because we are uh, confused with Spanish, but that's fine.
I see we have England and we have New Zealand here and Southern California and Central Florida
Yeah,
and Texas,
yeah,
and they're coming in, and another
yeah.
from England. So I'll
Mhm.
introduce you, and we'll talk about your pattern. So,
All right.
welcome everyone to Monday Fly Tying. I'm very lucky to have as my guest today Antonio Rodrigues. Antonio is the manager of Front Range Anglers in Boulder, which is a terrific fly shop. And Antonio is really well known for his dry and emerger and nymph patterns. Antonio is I don't know, you're a hatch man, right? You love to fish hatches.
Yep, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And we were speaking before we started, and Antonio says he'll fish a streamer, but reluctantly maybe, unless there's a lot of big fish.
Yeah. Well, of course, and I think everyone, if you had a chance to fish for some rising fish, you'll do it. And
Yeah,
I think the trick is to adapt to the kind of fishing you have that day.
yeah, sure.
And if that thing is dry flies or emergers, that's super. And fish with delicate setups, that's amazing.
So you don't have a "I'd rather chuck meat" bumper sticker on your car.
No.
Okay.
Well, it's funny. It is funny that I don't. People ask me, why don't you have a rod vault in your car? Why don't you have any sticker,
Yeah,
any
yeah,
at all?
yeah.
So you know what? Every angler has them, and we once in a while we have problems on the rivers that people just break into the cars just to get some gear. And because I have an old car, I prefer to lose my car than lose my gear, so I don't put any sticker in there and all that.
Mhm.
So I keep it quiet. And of
I
course,
I have no rod vault and no stickers on my truck either.
yeah, and of course, as a manager in a fly shop like ours, I need to respect everyone. And sometimes I would like to say something, but I can't. I think respect them. So
uh, anyway, we're going to tie one of Antonio's signature patterns today, and we get a lot of requests for emerger patterns and how to fish them. And actually, I just finished a podcast that'll come out in a couple of weeks on fishing emergers with another guest. But we're going to tie Antonio's blueing olive emerger, which will work for any of the many small olive species. They tend to they tend to spend a lot of time at the surface film because they're small and they have trouble poking through the surface tension, and so an emerger is often a deadly fly for these hatches. And Antonio has a way of putting a cider on this fly that is rather unique, which is I know that a lot of you have trouble, particularly, olives often hatch on rainy days, dreary days, and they're very tough to see because they're small and kind of dark and gray, and they're extremely difficult to see on the water. And so this indicator that Antonio uses should help a lot in keeping an eye on your fly on the water. Was that your innovation?
That's one of the things that it came on the old days that I used to compete. That sometimes we needed to go too small on flies and all that, and everything that you can use to help you was great. I would see anglers fishing with the parachute, and the parachute would be orange, and I said, well, why don't we use this also on the when we split the wings on the CDC merger? Why don't we use high vis fibers? And like me, that is probably thousands of people already using them, and that's how it comes. Make it easier for you to fish that same pattern. With age, of course, I don't see as well as I used to, so I need everything that can help me. So, and also when you fish, for example, a dry dropper rig, I would like my dry fly to be very visible, and I started using that on big marsh browns, on big mayflies, and then start moving them down to the little emergers too.
It's a little tricky. This is not a very complicated fly, but getting it all crammed into the head of a size 18 or 20 or 22 is a little tricky.
It is tricky, and that's why I have a lot of those flies tied without any high vis, because it's one more step on when you split your wing. You're gonna go forward with the high vis to open it, and then you need to lock it, and then you need to come back again to have that high vis top, and that increase the volume on the head of your fly. And if you do it too much, it will be a mess. It will be heavy, and then of course you're gonna jump on top of the eye of that hook.
Yeah. All right, shall we tie one?
Oh yeah, why not?
Okay.
I'm gonna try to remember how to tie those, but we can do that.
So there's what a finished one. My attempt looks like. I'll take that out of the vise and put a bare hook in there. And I am using a size 18 tactical dry fly hook, which has a little bit of a curve to it, a little bit of a short shank, and barbless.
Yep.
It's a nice little hook. I know you use a more of a curved kind of a scud hook for yours.
Yep. Yeah, and the reason is simple. The reason is very simple. I have
a little closer.
I want that body, the emerging body, to be a little bit inside the water, and that way we'll have it cuts the film of the water, so it look like an emerger. So I think.
Okay, so I'm going to start my thread, and I'm using 12-0 brown thread. I think that the 12-0 is important on this fly, at least for my skill level. It's really fine, and you can get some build up without a lot of bulk. And then I am going to take some superfine Spectre Blend dry fly dubbing, and this is a very fine textured synthetic.
Yep, and of course
in olive.
Yeah, and of course you can change it to a kind of yellowish color or lime color if you want to tie, for example, a PMD merger or something like that. So
yeah, this could be tied in any color, right?
Yeah,
Can be
Yeah.
tight. Phil, you will yell out questions, right? Oh, by the way, everyone, they have bad news for you. Julie is not here today. I know you're going to miss her. She had some dental surgery. She's doing fine. So we have Phil Monahan behind the curtains today. And Phil will be reading off questions to us as we get them. So I'm going to apply some of this very fine, and I'm just, again, with these small flies, you just want to barely dirty the thread. You don't want much on there. And Antonio, something I like that you do, noticed in your video, is that you double wind. And I really like that with dry fly. You know, you do two passes of dubbing. And I like that method.
I like to start with just a few fibers, because it's always easier to add more dubbing than take it out. As soon as you add too much dubbing on your fly, you try to take it out, and all those fibers gonna be tangled, and it'll be a big mess. So I prefer to do that.
All right, so we're going to wind this, and we're going to start up here, you know, about 2/3 of the way up, and we're going to wind back. Nice tight turns of this dubbing, and we're going to go around the bend so that this body hangs down into the film like an emerger. And then we're going to come back, and it actually double winding like this enables you to often get a really nice taper to your body, and it's more durable because you have two interlocking layers of fur.
Yeah. And if you start thin, you can always correct any bad shape that you have on that body. And usually, especially if you are tying with super small sizes like 18, 20, 22s, you're gonna need that.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Doesn't look like we have any questions at this point. So, okay. All right. So now I'm going to get my post material, and I'm using a very bright orange Antron yarn. Antonio uses Florifiber sometimes.
Yeah, any kind of flow fibers will work well. You just need to see it well. They need to. It is important that those fibers don't absorb a lot of water. So synthetic fibers, most part of them don't. So, and they are visible, high vis, and then of course that you can always. I always look to the number of fibers that I have. For example, what I have here is just some fibers comparing with the original. So I choose the right amount of fibers depending how big the fly that I'm tying, depending on the size that I'm tying. So,
hey Tom, someone wants to know why there's no tail or shuck. This is Mark and Roger each asking those questions.
Okay,
that is a great question.
Yeah, that's a question for Antonio because it's his fly.
Yeah, that's a great question. Funny, seeing Tom tying on this straight shank hook reminds me that I have the same fly tied on a straight shank, and I put some shuck fibers in there. You can tie it with if you use a straight hook, I like to have a little bit of fibers in there, some shuck. If I use a curve hook, I don't use a shuck, and the reason is I want that body to penetrate on the water better. If you use a shuck, it doesn't cut the surface as well. But it is a fun question because on a straight hook like you have, I don't put as much dubbing on the bend like you did. Keep it a straight body, and I put some shuck fibers in there. Some Antron, gray Antron or white Antron, or any other fibers. Some CDC will work too. But yeah, that's on a curve hook. I prefer to don't have any shuck. On a straight hook, yes, sometimes I use it.
This has a little bit of a curve to it, though. I mean, it's
Yep.
not a totally straight shank.
Yeah. So the way you're tying it is with a no shuck, because you are using the shank of the hook, the bend of the hook, to cut that surface film. So
Okay.
it makes sense that you don't have any shuck in there.
Okay. All right. So I think I've got a few too many fibers here for this size. So I'm just going to pull a few off there to make that shuck or that post a little bit thinner. Let's see if hopefully, and I am going to, I'm going to go up to the eye first, and then I'm going to tie this in, winding back right onto the body a little bit. About there, Antonio?
Yep, that is perfect.
Okay.
Make sure that you always leave room enough for you to do all the work on the front. Don't cover the high of the hook. That's important.
There is a lot of work to be done up there too.
Yeah. I've been there so many times.
All right. Now I'm going to take some natural fox squirrel dubbing, which is this one here. I've already got some out, but this is a natural blend, and fox squirrel is got a lot of guard hairs in it. Small guard hairs, smaller than hares here, so it's good for these smaller flies. Very fine guard hairs, and I am going to dub a little bit thicker bunch of this on my thread. Let's see if I got the right amount, and build up a little bit of a thorax there. How's that? I think, is that
and the thorax needs to be not very extended on the hook, but bulky, because that thorax will be the one that will lift the wings, the CDC wings, when you tie them in there.
So I think I'm going to add a bit more. I think I'll add just a bit more and see if I can get a little more lift out of that.
And of course, I think that will be enough. Yeah. And so that dubbing will be piled, and when you tie those fibers, CDC fibers in there, they will lift the wing, and that Tom will help you a lot to see it on the water.
Yeah, it'll help it float as well. Those fibers, almost like hackle.
Yep.
All right, so now we're going to select our CDC fibers. And my advice to you when you're working with CDC is to make a mess. In other words, don't try to pull the feathers out of the bag, because you won't be able to select them well. So I think the best thing to do is, and I'll often dump them into a little plate or something on my fly tying bench, but so you can sort through these. You can't really see what's going on when they're all in the bag. So I'm just going to pull a bunch out here.
Yeah.
And for the size 18, what do you think? Maybe three pieces?
Three pieces will be more than enough.
Okay.
What you need to, working with CDC, and especially for wings and for these small flies, you need to be very careful on the quality of CDC. Like you just mentioned, just make a mess. Take all the fibers out. Try to choose 3 feathers. They are more or less the same size. The fibers are more or less the same size. And like I have here, for example, I have 3 feathers, and what I do, I pile them on top one of the others, just to check if the fibers are more or less the same size.
All right, I think I've got 3 that are pretty close. They're a little bit different in color, but I don't mind that at all.
No,
and
that's not a problem.
I'm going to line these up. Line up the tips. And then you snip the center stem out of there if you can.
Yeah, what I do always, I put the three on top of each other's, and then I use a scissor like this, and I'll cut the stem exactly where I want it, and I'll have a bunch of fibers like this.
Okay.
You can tie them in a different way. I like to tie them this way. You can pull all the fibers out and then tie it, and then with a scissor just cut the fibers on the size you want. I prefer to do it right away, with the same length of fibers, and get it done right away. Because naturally the fibers on a feather are the same size, have the same size in one side and the other. So I take advantage of that.
I'm not going to snip those stems because these are so thin at the top that I just can't find the stem. So I'm not going to snip them. I'm going to see what happens here.
Yeah.
And then you want this wing a little longer than normal, right?
Yeah, a little bit longer.
Like about there.
Yeah, that'll be good. And you always have the chance to get a scissor and trim them a little bit if needed.
Right. And probably a good idea to give your bobbin a little counterclockwise spin so that the thread jumps back on there, and then tie those in securely.
And now on that is the moment that as soon as you start tightening that thread against the dubbing side, the thorax, those wings will go up a little bit.
Did they go up enough, do you think?
Yeah, that'll be enough.
Okay. All right. And then carefully I'm going to cut, making sure that I've left some room in there.
It's funny, I tied thousands of this fly, but every time I need to talk about it, I prefer to be tying it than not.
Yeah, no, it helps. All right, and then probably best to turn the fly toward you a little bit so that you can split those CDC fibers in half. That looks pretty good. Actually, I'm going to move a few over here. That looks a little better. And then you just pull that post over the top. Take a couple turns. Two, maybe three. And so this is what it looks like from the top now. And then fold, and this will help secure these too. Fold that back and secure on top of it. How am I looking so far, Antonio?
It looks good. It looks good. Just make sure that that the wing is very well split, and then and then you're gonna realize after tying some of them that the amount of high vis fibers you're gonna go up or down on the amount of fibers. Make sure that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was seeing you that finishing the flying there. One advice that I always do is lock it very well, and then a little drop of super glue or head cement in there. Because if you don't do that, after 10 casts, or not even that thread that you just locked the high vis will slip to the front, and the high vis will go straight to the front, and the fly is destroyed. So.
Well, I am not going to put any super glue on this right now because I can't get in there close enough with the camera. I don't want to put it. I don't want to put put it. So, and then you trim the wing about. Well, I should whip finish first, right before I trim the wing.
Yeah, I'll finish that first. Because even if something goes wrong in there, you can always go back and work on it.
Mm-hmm. And then you trim the wing to about half the wing.
Yes, at least. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, small.
There we go.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And that is a sexy little emerger. I like it. I like it. Looks good. Looks really good from underneath, which is
and that's the important.
That's the way the fish sees it, right?
Exactly. When you
and you see that.
Yeah. When people ask, well, that high vis that will trigger the fish, and I said, my answer is always, I hope not, because the idea is to be visible for me, not for the fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is the fly, and a deadly little emerger it is. All right. Do we have any questions? I use some Glow Bright floss. That sounds good.
Yeah, I see a fun question in there. Could you use buffs? The question is, the answer is simple. If it's for the wings, no, I prefer to use the regular feathers. I think the fibers are a little bit longer and a little bit stiffer, that keep that shape of the wing and that V wing shape better.
And Mark wants to know, what year is that fox dove? Well, that's the 2015 vintage. It was a very good year for fox dove. No, actually, Mark, I don't have any idea what year the fox dove is from.
Yeah, that is a fun question in there too.
I bought it from Orvis about maybe a year ago.
Tom, your sound has gone wonky.
My sound.
Sounds like it's getting picked up by something else.
Oh, I know why. My microphone fell down.
That is, Bill is asking a fun question. A lot of people ask me that. He's asking if I can show my whip finish tool. Well, this whip finish tool, I have it since I started fly tying, and it was on the early 90s. And it's fun that it was the only way. Is big, is longer than my hand, as you can see. But it was the first one I bought, the only one I had access at that time, and I got used to tie with this whip finisher for so long that if you give me any other, I'm gonna struggle. And it's embarrassing when people show me new whip finish tools and I struggle. They look like I'm a complete beginner. And it's fun that people ask me, so you tie size 24s and 26s with that? Yes, I do. And it's just was my first one, and I got used to this, and that's why I use it. There's nothing specific, nothing special. There's just a special, an old style whip finisher.
That is the was known as the Thompson whip finisher.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thompson, and I used to use one myself as well. I still have one somewhere, and it's a really nice tool. I don't think anyone sells it anymore. And
no, it's not easy to find them.
Yeah, I think it was in the late 70s or early 1980s. A gentleman named Frank Mattarelli came out with the design that we use today. That's the Mattarelli. Haven't heard anybody call it that in years, but that's the
Yeah,
gentleman who invented that whip finisher.
That's one thing that all my friends, when I used on the Portuguese team, everywhere I was tying, that they will look to the whip finishers. What the hell do you have there?
Could you use CDC? You could use CDC puffs for this, right, Antonio?
Yeah, I already answered that question, and the reason is the fibers on the puffs are more flexible. So as soon as you put the wing up, they will start bending down onto the sides, and the balance on that fly is not as good. So she tends to fall down to one of the sides. So that's why we use these fibers.
Tom, we have a camera question. Dave wants to know what close-up lens you're using.
Phil, did you know that you're coming in with Julia's picture?
I know I did that on purpose because people missed it.
That's fine.
Oh,
no one is complaining about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about our equipment here. That's a kind of a proprietary thing. But it's a macro lens, Dave, for the close-up. Do we have any other questions?
Nope. I think we covered it all. Okay. Do you want to talk some about how you actually fish that fly?
Sure, Antonio.
Yeah. Why not? So every time that you have a piece of slow water, especially I would start on slow water, that you have those fish sipping little midges and little emergers. Basically all year round you'll have a moment that you have that. The reason was to try to trigger the attention of the fish right away, so that curve shape will cut the film of the water, and those fish will think that that's a fly that is in an emerger stage, and they are very vulnerable at that point when they are trying to dry the wings to take off, and that's why we go back and forth. Well, especially Portugal and Spain, there's a lot of patterns similar to this one with the same concept. They have half of the body inside the water, and the wings outside. Like that, she was on the stage that the wings are opening outside, but they still have a little bit of the body inside, and to make the trout think that fly is vulnerable, so it will be easier for them to eat. What we found out is that the takes on these flies are very soft, so it looked like the fish, they trust that fly won't go anywhere, so they take it very slowly. And one of the reasons when competing was a take like this, because it's very slow, they'll eat better, so the set will be better, and we could keep that fish and measure it. We could measure that fish because the takes, if the takes were very aggressive, if they were not trusting very well on the fly, we would miss a lot of the takes on this fish. So like I said before, slow moving waters or small riffles, if the water is not too fast, and if you can see the fly and you can keep it floating, they'll work very well. Every time that you have a hatch of blowing olives or midges, and then you need to change the color of the body, or PMDs, this fly will work very well.
Well, how about floating? Do you apply floating to this, and if so, what type?
Yes, any of the silicone gel, you can use it. And the first question people ask me, but if you put silicone gel on CDC, you're gonna sink. You're gonna be messed up, and the wing will be all oily. So what you need to do is put a little drop of that gel on your finger, rub your fingers, and after rubbing your fingers, what you're going to do, you're going to grab this fly and just put it on, grab with the one hand and just do it on the wings like this, just with the amount of silicone you have in your fingers, like this. Not a drop. You put a little drop, rub it with your fingers, and when you have that shiny little piece of silicone in your fingers, that's when you're going to apply that on the CDC, and you're going to see that the CDC will float better, it doesn't absorb the water as fast, and is not all messed up.
And so you don't use the powdered.
That's a different stage. So this is before I start fishing. I always put some silicone on my fingers, rub it, and clean it. When she starts sinking, or you get a fish and it's all messed up, a little bit of Amadou patch, or a paper towel, from a kitchen paper towel, something that absorbs very well. I squeeze. Let's see if I have one around here. Yeah, I do. I always have one on my pocket. Something like this. So what I do, I will squeeze it like this without moving, just squeezing like this and take it out. And then what I do, I use the salt, any dry shake or any, put it inside, shake it, and you'll see that the fibers will be like this right away. And then you can fish right away with that. Or if you want to do an extra little bit of silicone, again on your fingers, and rub it again on the fly. Those are the two floatants that I use on these flies.
They had a question: would you use it behind a big dry?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. I'm not a big fan of fishing two dries, unless it's two grasshoppers or two big stoneflies or two caddies that the drips are not perfect. They can move a little bit. With emergers, I like to have only one fly on it to have a perfect drift. Usually I fish 15 to 20 foot long leaders between leader and tippet. So I like that to be very soft and perfect. If you fish big rivers with a lot of, for example, Finland, Sweden, Norway, for grayling, for example, these flies work very well for grayling. I would probably had a big fly behind just to have an idea where she is.
And we had a question about fluorofiber, and I see Phil put in a link to at Fly Fish Food. Looks like we have a question in Portuguese from Mariana.
That's
That's Portuguese, right?
That's Spanish. No, yeah, that's about tying the fly or tying the, not of course, not la bragueta. In Portuguese, it's braguilha.
Oh, okay. So do you know what his question is?
Is asking this a translator, probably is using a translator, and when you translate tying the emerger, the BWO emerger, it shows up as bragueta. Bragueta means the opening of the zip of your pants.
The fly. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, it's a fly, right?
Yeah, Mariano must be from Argentina or Spain, because I think Mariano is also Portuguese name, but Portuguese or Spanish is so similar, and he's speaking in Spanish. So at least he wrote the message in Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we're out of questions. Antonio, I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, Tom,
to walk me through this fly.
Well, Tom, it's always a pleasure. You know that. It's a pleasure to be part of this fly fishing community, and with you and Orvis and all that. So it's great.
Well, thank you. And if you haven't gotten enough Antonio today, we did a podcast. What was it, last year on winter fishing? I think, wasn't it last winter?
Yeah, we did in January. I think. I don't know.
I think it was last January. Yeah.
January,
if you go back
yeah.
through the archives, Antonio talks about fishing this fly and others during the winter. So you can go take a look at that. It's the Orvis Fly Fishing Podcast, by the way, in case you didn't know. Oh, what kind of knot do you use for this fly?
Well, a clinch will work very well. That's I use or a clinch or or a Davy knot. I don't use any loop knot on this. I need a very small knot that the fish don't see.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will be here next Monday again. We're going to be tying a magic quill perdigon, kind of a generic synthetic quill body. It's a material that I'm personally very fond of. It's a synthetic quill, and it's great because you can really yank on it and stretch it, and it looks like quill. It's beautiful stuff. So we're going to be tying a simple perdigon with this magic quill next Monday. So and I'm all by myself because it's my pattern. Well, sort of my pattern.
That is good.
It's a generic perdigon. Again, thank you so much, Antonio.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, guys.
I wish you good fishing and good tying, and we'll talk to you soon.
Well, talk to you soon, Tom. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone, and thanks for the great questions. Those were awesome questions. We really appreciate you coming on and tying with us today.